Ace Combat is one of my favorite niche franchises in gaming. It combines all the usual elements you would expect from a modern military game. Anime, lore establishing natural disasters, sci-fi superweapons. It also isn't set on Earth. It's set on a fictional alternate Earth called Strange Real, which is composed of nation states whose names are sometimes problematically similar, but can also be a little on the nose. The Union of Yuktabanian Republics certainly doesn't feel like a reference to anything, and I wonder what country Sapin is supposed to be. That said, Ace Combat is a delightfully melodramatic flying combat franchise that has, despite a 13-year hiatus from their mainline game series, stubbornly refused to die. So let's go back 13 years, before the modern marvel that is Ace Combat 7, to look at a game that is far more pixelated. Ace Combat 6. AC6 is a bit of an odd duck. It's an Xbox exclusive game dropped right in the middle of a franchise that had thus far released 7 main games on PlayStation consoles, as well as a spin-off on Game Boy Advance that we don't talk about. Then Ace Combat 6: Fires of Liberation launched on the Xbox 360 in October of 2007. And let me tell you, when your two main markets are North America and Japan, and you release a game exclusive to the Xbox, you've got a recipe for the lowest selling non-handheld game in a franchise. Despite that, AC6 is a fantastic game with a multitude of lovable characters, scrappy enemies, traditionally Ace Combat-y stages, and some of the most awkward, stilted cutscene dialogue ever.
The castle and a significant section of the old quarter have escaped relatively unscathed.
The castle's okay.
However,
Thank God.
the announcer went on to say that our castle was robbed of countless antiquities that once were elaborately displayed in our castle.
The thing I love about Ace Combat as a franchise is that each installment tends to focus on the socio-political aspects of warfare, and while those philosophies can be delivered pretty clumsily, the idea is clear enough. The series as a whole tends to revolve around the circumstances that force people into fighting, issues with weapons of mass destruction and crimes against humanity, and the cost that warfare takes on civilian populations. Ace Combat 6 revisits these topics, and presents them in a way that I consider pretty similar to other installments of the series. Your country is invaded in the wake of the Ulysses Crisis, an event from Ace Combat 2 when a massive asteroid, Ulysses 1994 XF04, was intercepted and destroyed as it approached the atmosphere by a railgun complex known as Stonehenge. This saved the planet from total annihilation, but as the clever boys and girls among you may notice, there's still a fuck of a lot of rock coming down, and it rained down randomly across the continents of Strange Real. It did not impact these nations equally. It devastated some, but didn't touch others, sparking the conflicts of several games. For example, in Ace Combat 4, Erusia attacks your home country of Eugia because Erusia caught a lot of rock and their economy and social structure were decimated. Allied forces are pushed back to a small island and forced to retake their homeland and defeat the enemy forces in the face of experimental anti-aircraft technology. In Ace Combat 6, Estavakia attacks your home country of Ameria because Estavakia caught a lot of rock and their economy and social structure were decimated. Allied forces are pushed back to a small island and forced to retake their homeland and defeat the enemy forces in the face of experimental anti-aircraft technology. As you can see, the Ace Combat series is an endless font of creative storytelling, but that isn't the point here. The point is that Ace Combat is anime with planes. Ace Combat takes all of the wonky dialogue, overblown heroism, and personal drama of waifu-based entertainment and swaps that gratuitous TNA for GPB, UGB, and RCL. They also sometimes put waifus on the planes. But the main point being, the story has a very Japanese presentation, and I find that rather charming. It keeps it from being a dry military simulator, Not that it was ever a simulator to begin with. The flying is rather arcadey, and I don't think an F-16 can carry 200 Sidewinder missiles. Instead, it is a flying combat spectacle. Your radio constantly abuzz with the comments of your enemies and allies, who narrate the battle as you effect it. It becomes a complete hype fest as friend and foe alike constantly jerk off over how fucking cool you, the faceless hero, are being all the time. And you are fucking cool. You're Garuda 1, call sign Talisman. You're the nation's good luck charm. And you're the best kind of good luck charm to have, the kind that murders people. You kill hundreds of dudes every mission, and that's not counting all of the bombs that fall a little short and patriotically atomize your countrymen. Over the course of the game, you engage with a stylishly black and red enemy ace squadron called Strigan and obliterate them, fly through the service tunnels underneath a fortress wreaking havoc, fly down a narrow canyon to avoid radar detection while pursuing weapons of mass destruction, shoot down a pod of Sky Whale aircraft carriers who fire airburst cruise missiles, and you cap it all off by flying down the barrel of a giant gun in order to destroy its interior gun giblets. These accomplishments are the exclamation points of the game, but even the rudimentary warfighting of the in-between missions is satisfying, and serves to set up the hype of your next preposterous exploit. Each mission has a number of objectives, usually between 3 and 6. Of these, 2/3 or so need to be completed. So you have to choose your battles and what allies to support as you make your way through the game. Aside from modifying the radio chatter depending on what you're doing and how well you're doing it, these missions also provide benefits for further objectives. For instance, if I help my armored battalion defend the airfield within the AO, then I can land to refuel and repair without going all the way across the map to trigger the refit cutscene. Or, if I help my fellow squadrons deal with aerial threats, they are then free to help attack the targets of other objectives. This makes the things you do on the battlefield feel significant, and you really want to help out these characters you spend the entire game fighting alongside. Characters like your primary ground units, the armored battalions, Quacks,
Battalion here. We're set to disembark on the west side.
and Warlock.
This is Warlock. We've got the west route to the fortress.
The Second Fleet and their flagship Marigold.
This is Captain Ford of the Marigold. We're about to enter the bay and engage enemy ships.
Your helicopter assault force, Yellow Jacket.
This is Yellow Jacket. We're set to invade the fortress and initiate attacks from the inside.
Your trusty electronic support plane, Snake Pit. And of course, your fellow pilots, Shamrock,
As long as I win, I'll do whatever it takes. Let's do this, Garuda 1.
Avalanche,
This is Avalanche. Garuda team, you can use some cover.
Sky Kid,
This is Sky Kid to Garuda team. Looks like we're having your party right here.
Lanner,
No man can touch me in the sky.
Windhover,
This is Windhover. We're prepared to knock out their substations and supply routes on the water to cripple their forces.
Blizzard,
I started Garuda team. Providing backup. Show us how it's done, guys.
Saker.
Commencing attack.
You learn their voices, their call signs. You help them, and they help you. And it makes for a more satisfying and immersive experience than just being a one-man killing machine with utter disregard for the people around you. At the end of the day, that's what Ace Combat is all about. Obliterating enemies with your goofy anime friends, and destroying giant Galactic Empire-esque examples of bad guy engineering before rocketing off into the sunset. And it is a phenomenal game in a phenomenal series, and they need to make more. Call your local Bandai Namco representative and tell them to bankroll more Ace Combat games. And while you have them on the phone, ask for more Armored Core too.